So today we are going to be studying the letter P. And the letter P, oh, it went too far. Sorry, guys. There it is. The letter P. You should be familiar with it. It means mouth, but it also has to do with speech. So when we see the P, that should be what it should bring to mind, mouth or speech. All right, so we're going to get started. And first, we're going to do our prayer. So if you can all pray with me together. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al divrei Torah. Blessed are you, Lord our God, everlasting King, who sets us apart by his establishments and established us on words of Torah. So pay, here we go. Pay, and then you see the letter pay there at the top, and it's, excuse me, it's kind of like, it kind of looks like a cough, but it's got that little, what some people think looks like a tooth, hanging down, a top tooth hanging down in front. And since it has to do with the mouth and it has to do with speech, providing you with some scriptures pertaining to the mouth and to speech. So that's why we have the mouth there with the mouth open. Life and death are in the power of the tongue. Those who love it will eat its fruit. Proverbs 18:21. And then another one that I just love this scripture. Even a fool, if he keeps silent, is deemed wise, intelligent, if he seals his lips. Proverbs 17:28. So, it's amazing because a person can be presumed to be so wise if they just keep quiet. And it's like, oh, that person's just so wise, because you're not really hearing what's coming out of their mouth. So some people will assume that they're just very wise. But like it says, even a fool, if they keep quiet, will seem very wise. So the design of the pay, we have the pay on the right side, and then we have the final pay on the left side. And we can see the shape of one, that is bent over as if it's a person that is bending down on their knees, the one on the right-hand side. And then the one on the left-hand side is elongated, is yashar, it's long, it's straight, okay? But if you can kind of look at it, it's kind of like it's going beyond the earth. It's going deeper than the earth. It's going down deeper. So some commentary pertaining to the two shapes of the pay state that we all have the capability to speak soft and kind, or harsh, degrading, and damaging. So they're saying, there's two pays, and therefore we should be able to see through those two pays somehow that there is the ability to choose what kind of speech you're going to be putting out. Is it going to be soft and kind and uplifting, or is it going to be harsh and degrading and just damaging to people? Since the letter P signifies the mouth and speech, the two shapes may teach us to think before we speak. Proverbs 10:19 says, in the multitude of words, sin is not lacking, but he who restrains his lips is wise. Another way of saying it is, when words are many, sin is not far away. So, sometimes saying too much isn't very wise. It could lead to sin, because it could take you off of that, path of just staying and being, you know, upright in what you're saying, in what you're teaching, and how you're speaking to others. So, you know, I think the most important thing here is learning how to restrain our lips, and that's wisdom. Learning when to stop, when you've said enough. Why did that happen? So the design of the pay, another view pertaining to the two shapes of the pay, state that one pay is kneeling down. And like I said, it's like humility. It's bending down, looking down, and they're on their knees. And it's in humility. And that person will learn and hear and grow. And after they've been able to hear the full subject, that person will be able to be Yashar, be able to stand up straight and tall and be able to speak with knowledge and speak with the things that they've learned to give to others. So, you know, the first one, you'll see that little boy, he's just studying and he's just humble because he's learning from his teachers. He's learning, you know, truths. And then you see Grandpa Moshe. That's Michael's grandpa. Grandpa Moshe's picture, and he's sitting upright, and he's Yashar, and he was able to speak with knowledge of things he had learned and of things he could give out to others. The ayin, we learned last week, it precedes the pay. And the ayin, we learned all these things about the ayin and the eyes being, you know, like the top of the letter is the two eyes, and they're connected by a central nerve, right? So the pay is teaching us about the mouth, right? And teaching us about speech. So there were a lot of commentaries about, well, the ayin comes first because first we have to see things. And then the pay comes afterwards because once we've seen, once we've observed, then we're able to speak about those things. Then we're able to teach about those things. So it's important in everyday life and in our study of Torah, like when we do Shabbat, when we do the festivals, when we do, you know, all these different Jewish things, we're seeing every festival in Judaism, every, you know, Shabbat, we light the candles, we make the challah, and we're working with the dough. Hanukkah, we're lighting the candles and we're seeing the light increase with each day. The sukkah, we build a sukkah and we're under the sukkah and we can look up and see the stars. And every single holiday, there's something for us to look at and to see, and we're observing these things, and then we're able to speak of them. And you know what we have to think about is that it's just this continuous cycle. It's a continuous cycle. So one year we learn a little bit, the next year we learn a little more, and every year we're learning more and more and more. And therefore, every year we're able to give out more. Okay, so Judaism's beauty and simplicity, you know, we're able to see it with our eyes, and then we're able to speak to others about the life that Torah and Judaism gives us. Wisdom teaches us to observe first, then offer an opinion. You know, it's great to have questions, but as far as an opinion, hold back, observe a little longer. Okay. So the very first time we see the letter pay is actually when we see the first ayin. Okay, and it is in Genesis chapter 1, verse 2. Al Panay. on the face of, in the face of. Okay. So, I said this last week. So this is just, to reinforce and repeat it. But the first time, it's on the face of the deep, the depth of the subterranean waters. But it was also like an abyss or a grave. And then the second time, it's alpine. God's face is on the face of the water. So it's as if the eyes and the mouth in the face are destined to first see, okay, the wonders that the Lord has made, and then speak of them. So, it's interesting because the very first time they appear is in the exact same place, al Panay, in the face of. So, just as God created the world with words in Genesis, we have to think about what we create with our words. Are we putting out words of blessing or words of cursing or words of diminishing others? So, I have that mouth there and it says blessing, fear, agree, no, yes, disagree, love, death, life, hate, curses. Well, it's important that we're very careful, about what we're putting out. And I just kept thinking about the power of the tongue, the power of the tongue, as I was studying this, because it's like the speech. What are we giving? Are we lifting people up? Are we leading people to the Lord? Are we leading them to a life of life, to a time of life, or is death? Is it positive? Is it negative? What's coming out of us? Okay. And, I think about that scripture where it says, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. It's like, what's in your heart? Because the words that are coming out of your mouth is from what's in your heart. And the things that are in your heart are what you're putting in through your eyes, through your ears. Okay. What are we putting in? Because that's what's coming out. So this is an interesting little take on pay, because we find the word paro, Pharaoh, okay, and it has the pay. And in the Mishnah Yadayim 4:8, as it is said, and Pharaoh said, Lord, that I should hearken to his voice, to let Israel go. But when he was smitten, what did he say? The Lord is righteous. In other words, Pharaoh was fighting. Pharaoh was fighting God. Pharaoh was speaking against God, against God's authority, against God's might and power. And at the end, he saw that happen. Uh-oh. Oh, I am so sorry, guys. Don't know what's happening. Didn't touch it. Okay, so Pharaoh was just, you could say, coming up against the authority that was over him. And one of the things that I read that was really interesting, that Pharaoh's name, Paro, actually be translated as Pei Ra, mouth, and Pei meaning mouth, and Ra meaning evil. So it literally can be translated as evil mouth. The thought of an evil mouth is when a person has lost his humility and challenges God's authority and his Torah. So, they're speaking against those that are above them. This king or Pharaoh is the epitome sensitive. This king or pharaoh is the epitome of human evil. This is the perfect picture of when one negates God's truth or his word or his Torah. Pharaoh or Ra is what happens when a lack of respect for authority redefines good and evil apart from God's wisdom. So, keeping with the theme of Pharaoh or Ra, looking at Pesach, okay, Rabbi Levi Yitzhak of Berdichev taught Pesach literally means pay and sach. The mouth, pay, sach, talks. We tell the story of the miracles that God performed to free us from the slavery of Egypt. And the Haggadah literally means like the telling, and we use it during the Seder. It's the actual, book, the text that we use, the little pamphlet that we use to recite or tell the story of being freed from Egypt, being freed from that bondage of slavery. And it's taught that, the more you tell of the Exodus, the more you tell of the freedom, the more we shine a light, on the miracles that God did. So the incredible contrast we see in the Pesach story of telling all about the miracles that God performed to free us from slavery versus Pharaoh's evil speech that tried to denigrate and deny God and deny the Jews their freedom. So we see Pesach telling about God's miracles, and then we see Ra, evil speech, speaking against God, speaking against Torah, and speaking against his people. So I just thought that was an amazing contrast all in one story. So Pei is the 17th letter with a gematria of 80. 80 in Judaism. So Moshe leads Israel out of Egypt, and the Torah is given at that time. A few weeks back, I showed you a list of all of the different numbers and what they mean. Significant numbers, in Judaism. So at 80, a person is endowed with special strength and wisdom. It's like going beyond, beyond what we are used to. So there's a phrase attributed to a Hasidic master, Reb Nachman of Breslov, which my husband, whenever it was his turn to tell the kids a story at night, that was his favorite rabbi to quote and tell the kids stories about. Said, it's a variation on the theme, but Jews are forbidden to feel old. It takes courage to face the limits of life and the losses that invariably come with it, according to myjewishlearning.com. So I thought that was amazing, because it's like, as we all are getting older and things happen, and things may be a little bit harder, it takes courage for a person to see the limits that they now have to face. And it's amazing when you are able to see in people that are older than yourself how they are walking through their older years, how they are able to cope with being older, not moving as fast, not hearing as well, and it's just, I just thought that was really beautiful, because that whole thought of Jews are forbidden to feel old, it's like, what? But it's amazing, because I know for myself that I think about it, it's like, oh my gosh, I'm going to be 63 this year, and I think about it, and mentally I feel still so young, And it's crazy because, I may not, look young, but I sure do mentally still think there's times that I think, oh my gosh, I'm still a little, high school or middle school person. And I just want to do things. Yeah, I'm limited in some of the things I do, a lot of the things I do. But, it's like I don't feel old. And I just thank God because I don't feel old, you know. Yeah, I got limitations. I deal with it. So this one, it says, my dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen and slow to speak and slow to become angry. James 1:19. Yaakov 1:19. So that's important. Be quick to listen to others. Hear what they're saying. I mean, really hear their words and, slow ourselves down so that we're not speaking so quickly. Stop, listen to each other, you know. Um, you may think you're the one that's listening, but the other person may be going, oh, they're not listening. You know what? Be the one that goes, I want to listen. What are you saying? And then speak. Be slow to speak and slow to become angry. The way James is saying here, be slow to become angry. Listen and hear a person's heart. And that's hard. That's hard because we all have our own things that are motivating us, our own I don't want to say agendas, but our own path that we're trying to walk on, and we have to still be able to try to hear each other and be slow to speak and slow to anger. Shammai used to say, make your study of the Torah a fixed practice. In other words, study as often as you can and speak little, but do much and receive all men with a pleasant countenance. In other words, smile. I'm receiving you. I'm hearing you. I'm opening my doors for you. But that idea of speaking little, I believe it really comes with study, because the more you study, the more you start seeing how little you do know. I mean, everybody I talk to, it's like, God, it's like you're hungry for the word, and you start studying, and as you're studying and you're really getting into the study of the word, you start seeing how little you know and how much wisdom we have been, has been passed down to us by the sages. We have the Torah, and every day it's just a day of thanksgiving that you have that ability, you have that freedom to study and take it all in. And I've said this before, I do feel that there is going to come a time when we're not going to readily have our scripture, a hard copy of the scripture available, or the computer's down so we can't study on the computer. Start studying it now and start taking it in. And really, if it means memorizing it, but take it into your heart and start learning it for those times that are coming, that are going to be dark times, that you will not have the beauty of studying from the sages, or the beauty of studying, from your Torah. So the turmoil of taming the tongue. So even so, the tongue is a little member and boasts great things. See how great a forest a little fire kindles. And the tongue is a fire, a world of iniquity. The tongue is so set among our members that it defiles the whole body and sets on fire the course of nature, and it is set on fire by hell. James 3, chapter 3, verses 5 and 6. There's a teaching that I believe, I can't remember if it was in the Talmud or Mishnah, but basically it's like that field that gets set on fire, it's the world. And the gossip that goes out, the tongue, the stuff that goes out, the wrong words that go out, boy, it spreads fast. We have now the ability to see through, quote, social media. I'm not on social media, per se. I mean, I'm using Zoom. I don't know if that's considered social media, but I'm not on net on I was gonna say Netflix, Instagram, or some of the Facebook. I'm not on those things, but it's like, God, some of the things that are said, and they spread so quickly, whether they're true or not. They are spread so fast, and they can do so much damage, and so many people can get hurt. And it's like, you may say, well, it's not the tongue, they're typing it out and they're putting it. Well, you know what it is? It really is the tongue. It's the things that are coming out of that person when they're putting these negative things out there. So we used to tell people, and we still do, go to the source. Go to the source and find out what the truth is, and don't listen. Don't take in what somebody is saying against another person. That way you're taming your tongue, because you're not receiving the negativity that somebody else is saying. And you have that authority for yourself to go, I don't want to hear it. I don't want to hear it. So evil gossip kills 3. According to the Talmud, Arakim 15b, it says, evil gossip kills 3. The one who says it, the one who listens, and the subject of the gossip. So, it's not enough to say, oh, well, that person was gossiping. Did you listen? Because you're just as active. If not, in some things, in some places that I was reading, it said the person that listens is almost more culpable, because they kind of put a little gas on that fire to spread the evil words going out. So it's damaging the person that's speaking, it's damaging the person that's listening, but it's damaging to the person that is being spoken of. So we know that the evil tongue is Lashon Hara. Well, there's also Motzi Shem Ra, which is the unfounded, libelous gossip. And there's plenty of that. And we're seeing it right now, so much of it played out on TV, in a lot of different forms. And it's horrible, but it's just, it's going to just keep increasing. It's only going to get worse. It's not going to get better. In Judaism, there's a belief that each of us, and I just think this is so cool, that each of us is allotted a certain number of words in our lifetime. It's wiser to choose our words carefully so that we build positive connections with others. So if you think about it, it's like, okay, everybody's allotted a certain number of words for our lifetime. Who knows how long we're going to live? But if we're allotted a certain amount of words for our lifetime, wouldn't it be better to choose good words, to choose good topics, instead of wasting on frivolous subjects, or just things that are not going to edify and lift others up? So you'll build more relationships with the positive words. And you know, like a few slides back, don't use so many words. Use, you know, um, use your hand to cover your mouth and hold back a little bit if that's what you need to do, you know, and that is wiser than using your allotted words. Proverbs 25:18 says, like a club, a sword, a sharpened arrow is a man who testifies falsely against his fellow. So the scripture that there's ish, man, oni, is like testifying, but it's the word is more like accusatory. Berehu, which is falsely or against. Ed, his shaker. Shaker is his fellow. Okay, so a man who testifies like in an accusatory, deceitful, accusatory way against another is like somebody that is physically hurting that person. They may just be words, but if they're deceitfully accusing another, it's almost like murder. You're murdering that person's character. You are murdering that person's, you know, standing. And it's so important, you know, for all of us to be so careful on what comes out of our mouth, you know. And I, you know, I know it happens, it's happened to us, you know, how people have spoken, and you know, it's harmful, it's hurtful. One of the things I read had to do with, like, you know, as believers, as you know, how we treat each other, how we speak about each other. So, you know, just a warning, be careful, be careful. So the very last thing, and I've shared this, you know, with at in our congregation, and I know I shared it when we had our first congregation. I'm sharing it. I shared it with this congregation that we have. It's one of my favorite Hasidic tales. I think that the picture that it imprints, you know, in our mind just really sticks. It's so good. But there's a Hasidic tale that illustrates, I'll just read, danger of improper speech. A person went about the community telling malicious lies about the rabbi. Later, they realized the wrong they had done to feel remorse. They went to the rabbi and begged for forgiveness, saying they would do anything they could to make amends. They felt horrible. They felt really bad about what they had done. So it was good. You know, they were repenting. The wisdom of the rabbi says, okay, good. Go take a feather pillow, cut it up, scatter the feathers in the winds. Go scatter it in that field. That's how I had read it. It was scatter it in the field. And the wind just took the feathers out and covered the entire field. The person thought that was a strange request, but it was simple. And he went and he did it gladly. When they returned to tell the rabbi that they had done it, the rabbi said, now go and gather all the feathers, because you no more make amends for the damage your words have done than you can to recollect all of the feathers that have gone out. It's impossible. It's impossible, because You may speak something to person A. Person A goes to person B. Person B goes to C and D. They keep going and it just keeps growing exponentially. And if we think that, it's like, oh, you know what, it's okay. I went and I said I'm sorry to this person. Well, that's a great start. But can you actually go everywhere and pick up all the quote feathers that have gone out and done so much damage to that person's character, to that person's standing, to that person's name? It's impossible. There's no way. There's no way. With that in mind, weigh your words. Weigh your words. Be careful of what is going out. Think of the pay. Think of the pay and think of Paro and his evil, evil speech, his evil mouth. And be the opposite. Cover your mouth. If you need to, just cover your mouth. And it may look crazy at first. Just cover your mouth. And it may just take that physical action to get you to start thinking that you actually may be throwing out a bunch of feathers all over. And you don't have the capability, nobody does, to be able to go and collect all the feathers that have gone out, all the words that have gone out against other people. So that's the letter P. Means mouth, it means speech, means us having to think and weigh those words before we say it. Think about it. Think about the eyeing, seeing the things first, and then speaking. But it's actually time. You have to give yourself time to let those things, to give yourself time to think about those things. Just because you think something doesn't mean it's worth talking about, worth saying anything. So that's all I have for you this week. And I hope you learned something. And I hope you have a good rest of the week. I'll say shalom, shalom.